Welcome back to Dearest Mother's Darkest Secrets, the series where I uncover the most shocking and heart-wrenching stories of mothers whose darkest secrets shattered lives. I am Teri True Crime, and today's episode takes us deep into the tragic and disturbing case of Raina Thaiday. What happened on that fateful day in 2014 shook not only a community, but an entire nation. In previous episodes, I've covered the heartbreaking cases of Andrea Yates and Melissa Town, mothers whose struggles and unimaginable actions made headlines around the world. But today, we delve into a case like no other, a story of a mother's descent into madness driven by untreated mental illness, cultural pressures, and voices only she could hear. Raina Thaiday's horrific actions shocked Australia and the world, and the details of this case will leave you speechless. So grab your drink and settle in. On the fateful night of December 19th, 2014, a tragedy of unimaginable proportions unfolded in the quiet suburb of Manaroo, Australia. Raina Thaiday, a mother who was once regarded as loving and nurturing, took the lives of her 7 children and her niece in an act of horrific violence that stunned everyone. This was not a crime of premeditated malice, but the culmination of an acute and untreated mental illness that had spiraled out of control, leading Raina to commit an act that remains incomprehensible to those who knew her. Raina was a mother of 8, raising her children in the predominantly Indigenous community. By all accounts, she was known as a devoted mother, someone who took pride in caring for her children, despite the many challenges she faced. As a single mother, Raina was under considerable financial and emotional strain, but it was her ongoing health issues that would ultimately lead to the tragedy. In the weeks and months leading up to the killings, there were signs that Raina's mental health was deteriorating. Friends, family, and neighbors observed changes in her behavior that, in hindsight, were alarming. Her religious views became increasingly extreme, and she began to exhibit erratic behavior that was out of character for the woman they knew. Raina had a long history of mental illness, which had been exacerbated by the pressures of her lives. A longtime user of cannabis, she abruptly decided to ban alcohol and drugs from her home, a decision that coincided with the intensification of her religious beliefs. She began to seek counsel from different churches, seemingly in search of answers or solace. In the days leading up to the tragedy, Raina's actions became even more concerning. She started making proclamations about Papa God while out in the street. And in a bizarre act, she threw all of the family's possessions out onto the front lawn, stating that she was cleansing the house. This behavior was a clear sign that she was losing touch with reality, but no one could have predicted the horror that soon followed. On that night in December 2014, 2 of Raina's daughters stayed out past their curfew. This seemingly minor incident triggered a catastrophic breakdown. Raina began ranting in the streets, gripped by an acute schizophrenic episode. Her words were chilling. "You hurt my kids, I hurt them first," she yelled. "You stabbed my kids, I stabbed them first. If you kill them, I kill them." Her behavior that night was so disturbing that she called the police, demanding that they find her children and bring them home. But by the time the police arrived, it was too late. Raina, in the grip of her delusions, had already carried out the unthinkable. Raina killed 7 of her children and her niece. The community was left in shock and mourning. The loss of 8 innocent lives was incomprehensible, and the circumstances surrounding the killings only added to the horror. The case was immediately recognized as one that could not be handled in a typical criminal court due to Raina's severe mental illness. Instead, it was brought before the mental health court. Several psychiatrists who examined Raina concluded that she was in the midst of a huge delusional state at the time of killings. Dr. Frank Vargas, one of the psychiatrists involved in the case, described it as one of the worst cases of schizophrenia he had ever seen. Raina's delusions were so profound that she did not understand the nature or the wrongfulness of her actions. Justice Dalton, who presided over the case, noted that Raina's religious delusions were not in line with any recognized religious or cultural beliefs. They were the product of her severe mental illness, and as such, she was found to be of unsound mind at the time of the killings. The ruling of unsound mind in Raina's case meant that she would not stand trial for the killings. Instead, she was committed to a secure mental health facility where she could be detained indefinitely. This ruling, as you can imagine, was met with mixed emotions. While some understood that Raina was a victim of her mental illness, others struggled with the lack of a traditional trial and the absence of a clear sense of justice for the 8 children whose lives were lost. Christine Smythe, president of the Queensland Law Society, explained that the criteria for an unsound mind ruling are stringent. The court must determine whether the individual understood what they were doing, whether they had the capacity to control their actions, and whether they were suffering from a delusion at the time of the offense. In Raina's case, the answer was a resounding no to these questions. Raina's mental state was so compromised that she had no understanding of the reality of her actions. As a result, the focus of the case shifted from criminal justice to her treatment and long-term care. Raina was placed in the Park Center for Mental Health on the outskirts of Brisbane, where she remains under strict supervision with limited access to the outside world. As we can imagine, this tragedy sent shockwaves throughout the community and beyond. The grief was compounded by the fact that there were several fathers to the deceased children, each grappling with their own unbearable loss. The Torres Strait Islander community to which Raina and her children belonged were devastated. 3 days after the killings, the community came together in a somber pilgrimage to the makeshift memorial on Murray Street. The father of 4 of the children, Gavin Willey, was inconsolable as he placed a tribute at the site, crying out, "My babies, my babies." The scene was one of profound sorrow, with families and community members struggling to comprehend and wrap their head around the enormity of the loss. A month after the tragedy, more than 4,500 people gathered at the Cairns Convention Center for a memorial service called Kirby Amasker, which means our children in the local Torres Strait Islander language. The service was a poignant reminder of the lives that were lost and the impact on the community. The 8 white coffins were a stark symbol of the innocence that had been taken away. In the years since the tragedy, the community has worked to heal and move forward, though scars remain. The house where the killings took place has been demolished, and in its place, a memorial park was created to honor the children. 8 trees were planted, one for each child, and the site has become a place of reflection and remembrance. For those who are directly affected, the healing process has been slow and painful. The shock of the event still lingers, and many families have struggled to come to terms with what happened. Some families moved away from the area, unable to continue living in the shadow of such a horrific event. Others have remained, finding solace in the community and the shared grief. Indigenous community advocate and pastor Yodi Botsky, who knew the families, spoke of the difficulty in reconciling the tragedy with the person they once knew Marina to be. People have become possibly more private in their own lives, but at the same time, aware of what's going on. The case of Raina is a tragic reminder of the devastating impact that untreated mental illness can have, not only on the individual, but those around them. While Raina's actions were unforgivable, they were also a result of a severe and untreated mental illness that led her to lose touch with reality that should help us find the forgiveness she deserves. The tragedy underscores the importance of mental health awareness and the need for timely intervention and support for those struggling with mental illness. It also raises difficult questions about that balance between justice and compassion in cases where mental illness plays a central role. As Raina remains in a secure mental health facility, the community continues to grieve and remember the 8 children who lost their lives. Their memory lives on in the trees planted in their honor, a symbol of the innocence that was lost but not forgotten. If you know someone struggling with mental illness, please reach out to a professional. Help is out there, and it's never too late to seek it. You can call or text the National Mental Health Hotline at 1-833-852-6262 for free confidential support 24/7. This hotline is always available and has counselors who speak English and Spanish. Don't forget to like this video and leave a comment letting me know your thoughts about this case. And if you've liked what you've seen, please be sure to subscribe to our channel, and then you can become a member by clicking the join button. Members get early access to Dearest Mother's Darkest Secrets videos and additional exclusive content. Join me next time as we will uncover yet another dark tale of motherhood gone wrong. Until then, stay curious and remember, sometimes the darkest secrets are the ones we keep closest. I am Teri True Crime. Stay safe, watch out for crime, and enjoy your wine time. Until next time.